to Cowabunga Corner. This is the last episode of Season 1, and we're talking about the Ninja Turtle magazines that came out in 1990 to 1993, published by Donald E. Welsh. These magazines were fantastic for the fans. I mean, we had interviews, we had comic strips, we had fan letters, and I like to highlight on some of the issues from the magazine series, including the cover artwork and comic strips and just who did what, and try to get through this as we are going to do blogs for each of the magazines down the road. So don't think that I'm just touching a little bit and then never coming back, because I will be telling you about that interview with Ernie Reyes Jr. I will be going into the depths of the making of the Ninja Turtles 2 costumes that is in one of the magazines. But that is not this episode. In this episode, we are first going to talk about the covers. Each of the cover arts was done by Michael Dooney. He did such a fantastic job on these covers. It's just amazing. I love his artwork, and his artwork just really stands out and pulls people's eyes to the magazine. We have all these fantastic covers. Once you go in, the first page you bump into is the Cowabunga page. The Cowabunga page has a character from the Ninja Turtle series introducing it. So from the very first one, where they tell people that now you can be a part of our group by reading the magazine, and then we have down the road, we end up getting Bebop and Rocksteady giving the introduction. And then they even have April O'Neil in one issue, and she tries to do it like a news report, so it's her with her microphone. Then we have the fan page. Fan pages were basically the fan letters, and we have the fan artwork. It was called Outrageous Artwork and Notes to the Underground. Notes to the Underground came first, and it was in every issue. One girl mentioned how she has pizza toppings that she wanted the Turtles to try, and they replied to that. And then one kid turned around and said, "Mikey, I'm trying to be cool, but for some odd reason it's not working." And Mike replied saying, "Hey, you don't have to try and act to be cool, just be yourself, and that's being cool," which was one of my favorite messages given in the letter pages. Another really fun one that had me laugh for a while was a kid wrote telling Shredder to leave the Turtles alone. And the reply to that was, Shredder would leave the Turtles alone if they would let him conquer the world. But just some real fun stuff there. After that, we have the Fresh, the Radical, and the Maximum. This part of the magazine had a bunch of different areas to cover. It did not cover just Ninja Turtles. I mean, we had from strange haircuts to movies and a different way of doing them in the future, where people voted the outcome throughout the full movie, and it would keep changing the movie, so every time you saw it would be different. But they did mention Turtles. We had mention of the live Coming Out of the Shells tour, or the Turtles down at MGM, even an article covering Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. So just because they were not in the Turtles all the time doesn't mean you didn't want to skim over that area to find Turtles. We also have inside these magazines comic strips. This was done by the Mirage Crew. Most of them had artwork by Jim Lawson. Dan Berger worked on every single one of them. Mary Keller worked on each of the issues, got each of the magazines together with their work. They did a fantastic job of giving us different stories, different villains, and just kept us on our toes with every issue. We even got to see some of the Mighty Mutable characters. Jaguar made an appearance. Yay! So we had some great stuff. After the comic strips, we have the Cruising with the Turtles. This was in most of the issues, where we have the Turtles going mountain bike riding, touring New York City, and scuba diving. What they would do would take a picture of the setup that they want, and then they would draw the Turtles in there. The artwork was always done by Jerry Zimmerman, and it was very similar in each and every magazine. So you turn around and you're like, ooh, the Turtles are now scuba diving, and they're talking about their trip throughout the full time. They're fun, short to read, and a lot of cool pictures if you want to learn stuff about the different types of activities and sports they were doing. The next area inside there is the games. You can find games throughout the full magazines, each of the magazines. We had puzzles like the pepperoni pizza. We had board games like Save Our Splinter. And then there was even a measuring game. Talk about giving me a headache. I'm not into measuring. But this is Where is Shredder, where you had to measure the sizes of the buildings to take the clues on where Bebop and Rocksteady are supposed to meet Shredder. And last of one of my favorites was the New York City word search, and I love word searches. So each of them had artwork done by Jerry Zimmerman, Andrew Pratt, Ken Stacy, and Mark Matzutz. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that name correctly. I am dyslexic and speech is my hard part. So my favorite area inside the magazine has to go to Splinter Speaks. This was not in every issue. It started in the fall 1990 issue with the story of Stone Soup. I'll go more into depth with the stories and things like that as I do the magazine coverage for each magazine. But this was a fun story. It had its lesson in the end, and even a nice little illustration involved with each one of the Splinter Speaks. But in winter 1992, they did try switching it up, and they let Michelangelo tell a story. His story was The Three Dudes and the Beanstalk. Each magazine had different things filled throughout each of them. There's one thing that made it into almost every issue, almost, because it did not make it into the special issue, which is all about Turtles 3. Which is also the only issue that does not have Michael Dooney's artwork. It had two different covers. This is kind of the 3D cover where you got Michelangelo in different views. And then this is the original movie poster cover. So we got that issue, which is different than all the others. It's got the comic strip that goes through the movie and interviews. But the thing that made it into the last page of each of the magazines is Rad Reptiles. This would be a different story about a different reptile each time. We had the kimono dragons. We had the giant tortoises. They have the ugliest reptile, the biggest lizard, the longest tongue, the slowest reptile, and the most teeth, and most confusing reptile. So they had their little votes on what was what, and their pictures, and their little story about each reptile so kids could learn about the different reptiles around the world. The magazine in all is fun. We have a lot to it. It's jam-packed with stuff all the time. There's other stories like about the youngest kid who flew around the world, and just all the fantastic things they could possibly cram into a magazine. I was a subscriber. I definitely got my hands in this magazine as much as possible. I read them as they came out. My favorite interview was about Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. The making of. It actually shows the zipper on the shell. But as much as I love these magazines, I was crushed when they stopped making them. I wish that we had more Turtle magazines to come, though if they were to ever bring back the Turtle magazines, it would be fantastic if they could bring back the artist that brought this magazine together. This is our goodbye for a little bit with Cowabunga Corner, as we are going on to do new and better things for Season 2. I'm taking a small break as I'm also going to be going into surgery, hopefully soon, for my arm, which most people know has a disability. So, taking a small break. I hope everyone enjoyed Season 1 of Cowabunga Corner. Please subscribe and keep your eyes on the bulletins for updates on when Season 2 will begin, along with other types of blogs like more of Ivey's Flashbacks. Thank you for watching.